I am Dr. Paul Williams, and I really appreciate you listening to what I've got to say today about something that is on everyone's mind right now, and that is how to stay well. It should be something we think about all the time, but in today's environment, with the activity of the coronavirus rampaging around the world, everyone is thinking about how to not get sick. And that means that we've got to have a healthy immune system. What I want to discuss today is the relationship between nutrition and a healthy immune system. Now, my background is one of emergency medicine primarily. I am a physician, I'm an MD, and I spent almost 25 years working in emergency rooms in Atlanta. Nobody ever came to see me in the emergency room because he felt well. Everybody always had a problem, and many of those problems were preventable had that person done a better job of taking care of himself over the years, or just a better job of thinking better, thinking more clearly in the recent past. I am working now, I believe, to try to help people stay away from doctors. And one area that most people just do not understand is the importance and the power of the nutrition that we get from plants. All of the nutrients that we find in the foods that we get from those plants, fruits, vegetables, berries, whole grains, nuts, beans, etc. A large variety of these foods is important. Eating a lot of different colors of these foods is important because different foods contain different substances. These substances go by various names. These are phytochemicals, phytonutrients, micronutrients, but they're all talking about the same substances. Now, we've always known that those foods were good for us, but only in the last 25 to 26, 27 years have we begun to really understand why the nutrition that they give us is so powerful. Over that time period, food scientists have been isolating and identifying all of these substances in fruits and vegetables. And the big surprise, I think, to most people has been just how extensive and how complex this nutrition is. To date, well over 20,000 different phytonutrients have been isolated and identified, and the scientists are still counting. There are going to be more identified. And the other part of the concept of whole food nutrition is that we don't need a large amount of any of those substances every day. We need a tiny bit of everything because it's the synergistic effect of having them all together that is so powerful for us. Most people know that eating more fruits and vegetables would be a good thing to do, but almost no one understands how detrimental it is to our health not to have enough of this nutrition. And I want to talk today particularly about the relationship of this nutrition and a healthy immune system. The human body has an inherent capacity to stay well and healthy. But in order to do that, we must take in plenty of this nutrition every day. Just like oxygen and water are critical to staying alive, whole food nutrition is critical to staying well and healthy throughout life and having the highest possible chance of staying well and healthy. Without enough of this nutrition, you cannot be as healthy as you could be. And without enough of this nutrition, the body is not able to carry out that capacity to help deal with problems as well as it should be able to. This certainly includes having a healthy immune system. So let me identify that now. Let's talk about what the immune system is for a moment here. As the name indicates, it's a system. It's not a single solid organ like the heart or the brain or the liver. It is a collection or a group of different cells and substances that all work together to help protect the body from foreign invaders. There are some solid organs that play a role in this, such as the spleen and the lymph nodes, but in general, it is the entire system that works together to help protect us from foreign invaders like viruses, bacteria, parasites, mold or yeast, fungus, and even pollen. The system also helps protect us from things that go wrong inside the body. When cells become abnormal, like cancer cells, part of the immune system's job is to find them and destroy them. Or particularly appropriate for the subject today, when cells become infected with viruses. The immune system has the capability to find and destroy those cells. Viruses enter cells, and inside a cell, they replicate, producing more viruses that then leave that cell and infect or invade other cells. So having a healthy immune system that can destroy these virus-infected cells would be a really important thing to do with respect to our current situation. This also, of course, is important in flu season. Now, there are two basic types of immunity. The first type is innate, INNATE, or this is the part of the system that we are born with. It's the naturally occurring part of the system. And this is carried out by various types of cells. A couple of those types that you might be familiar with are basically white blood cells. This is part of the CBC, or the complete blood count, that you get done as part of your routine blood work. And there are several different types of those cells, and in general, they ingest and destroy invaders. There's also a type called a natural killer cell. And these are the ones that go after those cancer cells and after those virus-infected cells. So having those functioning at a really good level would be very, very helpful. Then there is also the acquired immunity. Now, this is the part of the immune system that comes into play when we think about becoming immune to an infection. This is the part that is involved when we get vaccines, when we get shots, when our babies get the immunizations that's teaching the immune system to react to those viruses and bacteria if indeed they do show up in the body. This immunity comes about when the immune system meets a new invader. When you get sick, for instance, with a particular virus, initially you are going to have an illness from it, but during that illness, the immune system is learning to recognize and know that virus. So when it shows up again in the future, you're now immune to it, and the system can destroy it much more quickly, and you don't really get sick from it. This is what's happening with the immunizations, whether it is for viruses like measles, or whether it is for a bacteria like the meningococcal meningitis bacteria that is so important to prevent our young people from when they go to college, because it can be rampant, can certainly show up on a campus. So this is the part of the system that we're teaching to recognize things. And there are two basic cell types that are involved here. One is T cells. These are carry out their job by functioning as cells. And then there are also B cells that carry out their job by producing antibodies that are substances that recognize and attack and attach to viruses and bacteria. And this is what allows the rest of the system, including those T cells, to recognize that these are foreign invaders and need to be destroyed. So having all of these parts functioning normally is really critical. Now let's go back to relating how whole food nutrition is important in getting this system to function normally. These phytonutrients, these micronutrients, play a significant role in maintaining and modulating the normal activity of the immune system. Without them on a regular basis, without enough intake of this nutrition on a regular basis, and it really should be daily, in my opinion, the immune system gets out of balance. All of these different components function normally in a pre-programmed balance with each other. And without enough of this nutrition, many of those components function at different levels of activity. Most of them become less and less active. So now you have an underperforming immune system, which in general means you're going to be more susceptible to the illnesses that a healthy system can help you deal with. One of the cells I want to mention here that becomes underactive is one of those T cells called a regulatory T cell. One of its main jobs is to regulate the activity of those B cells I mentioned that produce the antibodies that are necessary to help deal with viruses and bacteria in particular. When the T cell is functioning normally, the regulatory T cell, it tells that B cell when to produce antibodies and when not to produce antibodies. When the T cell is underactive, those B cells are not being regulated in any way. Nobody's in charge of them, so they're producing antibodies all the time when they're unneeded. So these are all running around in the body with nothing to do, and they begin to attack some part of that person's own body. This is the start of one or more of the so-called autoimmune diseases. Your own immune system is attacking some part of your body. There's a long list of them. Some of the more common ones that you would recognize names of are lupus, scleroderma, rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis. There's a whole host of them. But the problem here is that those B cells are out of control. Whole food nutrition helps the T cells maintain normal function or function at a normal level to keep those B cells under control. This also plays a role in allergies and asthma. Those overactive B cells basically mean that the immune system is much more hyperreactive or hypersensitive to things like pollen and dust mites, etc. But bringing them back under control is helps tremendously with the problems of allergies and asthma. Now, how do you go about making sure you get enough of this nutrition? Well, the current recommendation is an average of 10 servings a day of fruits and vegetables. And when I use the term fruits and vegetables, I'm including all of those different foods from plants. Most Americans average 0 to 3. And of those 3, if they're getting that many, it's usually a banana for breakfast and corn and potatoes for dinner. That's never going to supply enough of this nutrition. The other problem is that you cannot eat that many servings, meaning at least 10 a day, and I think 10 is a starting point, of any old fruits and vegetables you find and expect to get enough nutrition from it. Because the recommendation is that in order for those foods to be really nutritious, they must be fresh and raw. Raw obviously means uncooked. That's important because heat can damage many nutrients. I don't think you have to eat everything raw, but when you can, it's a good idea. Just don't cook your vegetables until they're falling apart. Leave them a bit crunchy. Steam them perhaps. But fresh is even more of a problem for most people because fresh means ripened on the plant and recently harvested. Why is that important? That's important because all of these tens of thousands of substances in fruits and vegetables. Only a few, the inorganic nutrients or the minerals, come from the soil. Everything else forms in the food as part of the ripening on the plant process. Pretty much everything you buy at a typical grocery store was picked green so it won't spoil too quickly. But when you pick it green, you stop the formation of the vast majority of those micronutrients. So that's why ripening on the plant is so important. So this is why also eating locally grown produce is so important. And thankfully, there's a lot more of that available these days in many areas through farmers markets and roadside stands, et cetera, because all of that food is grown within 50 to 100 miles of that farmer's market. The growers leave the food on the plants a lot longer, so they'll taste better, so you'll come back and buy more. But that also means they are much more nutritious. The Still, it is most Americans find themselves in a situation where they are eating fewer than 5 servings a day, and what they do eat was not ripened on the plant and has been cooked. And when you put those three factors together, it is impossible to get enough whole food nutrition from your diet. Meaning that there are a number of things that are going wrong here without that nutrition. One is that we are aging or wearing out more rapidly. The second is that we have a higher risk of illness and disease, and that certainly includes infections, including virus infections, because our immune system is not functioning as well as it could be, and the body can't deal with problems nearly as well as it should be able to. For the past 27 years, a company in the Memphis, Tennessee area called the Juice Plus Company has been putting the nutrition from more than 30 fresh, ripe, raw fruits and vegetables and berries in capsules and in a chewable, soft chewable or gummy form. To date, there are over 38 published medical studies looking at the efficacy of this nutrition, showing how well the human body can use this nutrition to do what it knows how to do, to function as normally as possible, and to maximize our chances of staying well and healthy. And many of these studies have looked at the function of the immune system. In those studies, it is clear that Juice Plus brings those underactive components, including that regulatory T cell and those natural killer cells, back up to a normal level of activity and function. And it also appears from the research that when that happens, that brings those overactive B cells back under control. Critical changes to bring about normal immune function. I also want to make the point that many people think that taking good care of themselves means that when something goes wrong, go to the doctor and get the right medication. Well, the medications are very important in many instances and can indeed be life-saving. But medications are all foreign substances to the body. The human body's never seen these things. There is nothing in fruits and vegetables that the human body doesn't recognize and know what to do with. And the difference here is that medications do things to us. Nutrition does things for us. In what the subject we're discussing in detail today, what it's doing for us here is bringing the immune system back to a normal balance and a normal level of activity and function. And in my opinion, this has to mean a much greater reduction, a far smaller risk of various infections and of being really seriously ill with them when we do acquire them. So I want to ask you, or not just ask, urge you, please take a serious look at your own and your family's whole food nutrition intake and think about how this situation has come about in our society today, sort of out of the blue. And wouldn't you like to know that your immune system is functioning as well as possible in this type of situation. So please talk to the person who invited you to listen into this talk. And if you know that your diet's not supplying enough whole food nutrition, please make arrangements to start adding it to your and your family's diet by starting to take Juice Plus. The studies on the immune system only lasted about 8 weeks. Your body starts using this nutrition immediately, and we know that within 2 months, your immune system is functioning much more normally. That doesn't mean that it is going to be really abnormal for 7.5 weeks, and all at once at 8 weeks, it jumps up to normal. It will be a gradually improving situation throughout that time. The research clearly shows that if your diet doesn't contain enough of this nutrition, that Juice Plus will have a very, very positive impact on multiple areas of good health, of bodily function that mean the improved chances of staying well and healthy, not just today, but throughout life. Thank you very much for listening in. And if you have questions, please get back to the person that invited you to look at. And in one way or another, we will be sure you get those answers.